Hey everybody, it's Dr. Quinn here, and I thought I'd do a video sort of just discussion on the resume and cover letter tips. We know that as students at UMGC, many of you are already in your career fields, but a lot of students go back to school and get these further degrees to either advance their position to move up the chain at the corporation, within the military, where they're at, or they're looking to switch from one career to another. And so at this point in a technical writing class, we think about like the pure technical assignments, which are writing assignments 1, 2, and 3, and the presentation. But then we think about the hybrid assignment, writing assignment 4, the technical writing you may do when you have to think about multiple audiences and how you have to incorporate data that your audiences may not know. And explain processes or explain issues to those specialized audiences. But to get to those places, it's time to often rethink resumes and cover letters, especially for a modern technical hiring team, right? So we've got these discussions here, and I want us to think about resume and cover letter in relation to the PARC summaries. And so I thought I would go through these links just to sort of share some of my thoughts, because I know in writing assignment 5, you're going to be putting some of this together yourself. And I've been on multiple, within the last 3 years, I've probably been on half a dozen hiring committees myself for academic positions, certainly. But sometimes not academic positions. I get drawn in at the full-time college where I teach, and I've been in positions for hiring front office staff, for hiring upper administration, so all sorts of things, not just teachers. I have seen an absolute metric ton of resumes and cover letters, and I'd love, from my experience, I'd love to be able to contextualize some of these links for you. Okay, so it says, in week 4, we examined a video tutorial from Candid Career and Resume Writing. For this discussion, just take a look at the resume and cover letters links, right? For these questions, these first 3 refer to the resumes page. And let's take a quick look at the resumes page first. It's not just this landing thing. It's these links as well. There are no rules for writing resumes, but there are things that I think modern hiring managers and hiring committees look for. They look for consistency. They look for text that's data-driven. Like, we want to see information. We just don't want to see platitudes and goals. We want to see what the candidate has actually done. We want it to be most recent first. We don't want to see what happened 20 years ago at the top of page 1. Let's see. Let's potential employers know what you have to offer and how you can make a contribution. So connecting to actionable items, I think, is going to be really helpful. The purpose of the resume, this just gives you some background and how we could play with phraseology and some of those things that you'll work on in writing assignment 5. I can give you feedback on it based on the committees that I've been on, the things that we hash out, right? Begin statements with the action verb is just like what you did in the instructions. Formalized, built, commanded, that kind of thing. Preferred length for most resumes is 1 to 2 pages. If you're required to do a curriculum vitae, which is a CV, and you have a highly specialized career, your resume could go, I remember helping my mom with her resume. She was a director of a hospital. She was first director of nursing, and then she was director of a hospital. And my mom was also former military. My mom retired from the Army as a colonel. And all of my mom's crazy experiences required her, because of her heightened position in hospital administration, to create a CV versus a resume, because she had all of these really very specialized roles that she moved up in, and wanted to show that range for other positions in higher end hospital administration. But for the rest of us, our resumes are, we don't move toward the CV, we do a resume instead. So that's where this comes in. Using a standard font, I cannot stress this enough. And no italic, and you want to be really subtle with bolds and design, but you want to be consistent. You definitely want to set off section headers and be consistent. All headers 1 have the same style, all headers 2, that kind of thing. You want to think about the type of work you want to do, the geographic location, and the type of organization. If you're switching from one field to another, you may not go purely chronological. There's all sorts of ways to think about, well, how do we present the information from when you did something 5 years ago, and that's the field you know you actually want to move into. So we've got we want to put a lot of thought into how we format the resume. So here's what I was talking about a second ago. You got the option for chronological resumes. This is the most easily read resume, experience focused in a sequence, much like a blog, actually, where the newest content is first. And as you scroll down, you get to the more historical work. Functional resume, more on what you can do rather than what you have done. This is a little bit more modern. And then, of course, there's the federal resume. The resume is distinctly different. It's detailed, chronological, more personal information. And you can see the templates at USA Jobs. So take a look at using bulleted sentences. It's just easier. You don't want to write big chunky prose. You want to use symbols when necessary. Just makes it easier to read unless the number is the first word of a sentence. Yeah, resumes, honestly, I was once on a hiring committee where we were looking for a faculty member in the English department, and we had 117 resumes, and we were only hiring for one position. So honestly, we didn't spend that much time. Match the company language. You want to use the acronyms and the terminology of the field, because that's an in, right? So resume do's and don'ts. Do customize your resume for each job. Looking at the keywords, maybe using a thesaurus and matching, especially if the words you're using have close synonyms. Do include a valid professional email address. I'm going to say this. I hope I don't offend anyone when I say this, but a student emailed me once, and their email was sexymustang69@gmail. And I had to pull the student aside, and I had to say, I'm your professor, and I would imagine this directly carries into the workplace situation. My hope is that you drive a Ford Mustang from 1969. And she shook her head. Yes, she did. I said, look, that email could be misconstrued because of two parts of it. So please don't use that email to any of your professors ever again. And let's extrapolate from that and say, don't ever use it in a professional setting. I say that as a funny anecdote because I imagine 99.92% of students don't have to worry about that. And you want to look modern. I don't want to be ageist when I say this, but I think if you have Hotmail or AOL, I would avoid that, and I would move more towards Gmail. And make sure not to use an email address of your current professional life if you don't want them to be contacted, right? So I teach at Northern Virginia Community College as a full-time faculty member there. But if I didn't want them to know I was job looking, trying to leave that position, I would not use that email in my resume as an example. Just be consistent. And yeah, printing it out, because some people in hiring committees will print out all the documents and look at them by hand. And then, of course, we've got the list with the action verbs. It's so much like writing assignments 2 and 3 that carries nicely over into this document. And we really do truly hope that this document is something that will benefit your professional life outside of this class. And there's everything right, even if you were in the perfect job and you're just going back to school just for the hell of it, just for the enjoyment and the learning process. That you update all of your professional documents, because you never know when an opportunity is going to pop up, and you never know when that due date for those materials are. It could be very quick, and you've got something that you can jump into. Now, the second one link within the discussion is the cover letters. With the introduction, you are specific to position and company. I cannot tell you how many times I've ignored somebody's resume because they wrote to they left the cover letter with like the wrong address, even though it was submitted electronically, or they were so very generic. If they said, "Dear Sir" or "Madam," please don't do that. You can say "Dear Hiring Committee," certainly. But if if there's a name from somebody in HR that was attached to the application information, "Dear blah, blah, blah," and Hiring Committee, that looks like you did just the tiniest bit amount of extra research addressed to the specific person, formatted in letter format. Single space, there is some great sample format and sample. Here's the format of how you should organize it. Your cover letter should be no longer than a page. Sample cover letter template. I don't think you have to put your data over here on the right-hand side. You can have everything on the left. I think that's perfectly fine. Be careful when you address somebody. If you do not know them, go on LinkedIn and look up their credentials. Please do not address them as Miss. Please do not address them as Mrs. In a professional setting, women are marked in our language by marital status, and we want to avoid that. If you know that they're a professor, dear professor. If you know that they have a PhD, doctor, is perfect. You can generally check out these professionals by finding them on LinkedIn. That's absolutely how I would do that. So that's something we can actually glean from the cover letter template. And here's an example of this. Obviously you would strip out the header here. I would move this information. I like everything on a left margin, but I think I wouldn't hold this style against a student. Not at all. You always want to make sure you have a salutation, and you want to make sure you have a signature and a closing at the end. And under the signature, I think it's a great idea under your signature to put a contact email and a contact phone number if you have the space to do that. It's nice to just duplicate it everywhere. Sometimes people put that information up in like where their name, they put their name and then this, and then maybe a contact email, but having it somewhere on the cover letter, I think is great. One of the things you can skip from your resume and cover letter as advice from me is that you can absolutely skip resumes or references available upon request. I hate that line because, of course, if you're going to apply for a job, it's understood, right? So that leads us to, let's see. However, Lindsay Cox does not recommend this type of statement. What you're proficient in. She discourages general statements because I think you could probably layer in specificity in what you've actually done in the resume and one or two very specific detailed data points in your cover letter. You know, why should they hire you? You want to be specific. But if you're moving into a very specific technical cybersecurity type job, then I think that the caveat is yes, by all means. How many languages do you program in, or what type of network security settings? You can tell I'm an English professor. But what types of network security environments have you managed? And then you can be specific and list, right? So I think it's all dependent on your field, and this is going to require you to do some of that research in the field. So listen, I hope this is an enjoyable discussion. I hope this is a good primer for what's coming up in week 5. I look forward to seeing all of your responses. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know.